So hello and welcome. You're here with AIIA Queensland, and we have Jim Varghese, so thank you very much for joining us. Now, the title of your talk today is Getting Down to the Business of Increasing Trade and Investment Between India and Australia. Could you start by telling us a little bit about the Australia-India Business Council and also the motivations for the strategic action plan that you developed in cooperation with QUT?
Well, the Australia-India Business Council is in fact the premier business council to promote trade and investment between Australia and India. It's over 30 years old, and the impetus came from the Prime Minister of India and the Prime Minister of Australia. We're a company called AIBC Limited, and we have chapters in every state and territory, and each president of a state and territory are directors of AIBC Limited, and I am the national chair of AIBC Limited, also elected by all the membership around Australia, as is my colleague Shunushka Siyamangal, who is the national vice chair, is also elected by the general membership. So the structure is a company, but also with connectivity by ensuring that the two national office bearers are in fact elected by the membership.
Fascinating.
So the purpose of our purpose is a very simple performance indicator. We have to nurture and increase the trade and investment between Australia and India, but we also want to do that looking state by state in Australia and territory, and similarly in India. And one of the initiatives that we currently have before the Australian government, which we're trying to get endorsement for, is the formation of an Australia-India Trade Index that would help us publish key trade and investment material by state in India and by state in Australia and by industry category, be it health, education and whatever.
Sounds like an enormous task.
It is an enormous task. It's a challenging task. It's a volunteer body, although we do have a national secretariat. We are on the cusp of major transformation, particularly since India is now the 5th largest economy in the world, and will not that long before it becomes the 3rd largest economy in the world. And we have to adapt and work to achieve this aim of increasing trade and investment between Australia and India. So we are at the point where we are refreshing our strategic direction, taking a good hard look at how we work and operate, with the view to maximising our impact in the corporate sector and in the SME sector and indeed all key sectors between India and Australia.
So from that analysis, what were the broad challenges and opportunities for Australia and India's trade relations?
Well, there are in fact a number of trade opportunities, and the Peter Varghese report that was done looking at trade between Australia and India to 2035 is a seminal document that is just really well timed in terms of giving the AIBC a compass of where these sectors are, and then some detail. And that will be very shortly supplemented by Ambassador Varawa's report, which is a similar report from the Indian government perspective. And that should be coming out, we hope, in September, October. And that would get the endorsement of the Prime Minister of India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi. And of course, we have state strategies here in Queensland. The Queensland government launched its Queensland India strategy. We have one in Victoria, New South Wales. So we want to pick up all of these in the AIBC strategic plan. And since we are a voluntary body and we have to maximise our impact, I was delighted that the Queensland University of Technology was able to put as a serious postgraduate MBA assignment 3 very excellent students who have produced a very, very good draft strategic plan for us to work with. And these have identified the key opportunities and challenges for the AIBC. And those key challenges go from agribusiness, for example, which is a good Queensland example, education, health, and technology. But there are others. I mean, really, in Peter Varghese's report, he identifies 10 sectors, right? So what we want to do is to say, okay, here are all these opportunities. Where do we best get the maximum impact as a AIBC Limited with a voluntary membership base, but all of us passionately committed to increasing the trade and investment between India and Australia.
How does the current strategic environment and security environment, how does that impact trade and investment?
I think it'll have a very significant impact on trade and investment. I mean, we're at a very delicate geopolitical time with the increasing tensions between the US and China in the trade war that's currently in a very delicate and fragile state. The Australian-American alliance is a long historic one. China is our biggest trading partner. And if I was speaking from a business perspective, it's always good to lessen your risks across the board. Much like if you're managing funds, you would have a balance between equity, cash and property.
Of course.
So in this instance, it's certainly in Australia's national interest to increase the relationship with India, to nurture the trade and investment, and to nurture defence ties as well. So you then have China, India, other partners, and the US, of course, which is one of our oldest alliances. So my view is that the current geopolitical environment favours a closer relationship with India.
Thinking domestically now, how has Adani's Carmichael coal mine impacted or set a precedence for our trade relations?
The Indian Adani mine has been very challenging for our trade and investment between Australia and India. And the concerning thing from the AIBC point of view is that it is a campaign that appears to discriminate against a company because it is of an Indian origin. And in fact, I did make a public statement that was widely publicised, I think, during the first week of the federal election campaign from the AIBC point of view, and that is I was urging politicians of all sides to avoid using discriminatory language in relation to Indian companies and Adani. Now, it is very important that I'm not saying we should give any special treatment to Indian companies, but we should treat them the same as other companies. So in the mining sector, for example, you don't have, stop mines of US, Chinese, Japanese. You don't have those campaigns. Yet in this instance, Adani, the term Adani, appears to be demonised. When you go around Australia, you see these demonstrations, stop Adani now. That does not help the bilateral relationship. So I'm actually very encouraged that all sides of politics at the present time now acknowledge that the Adani mining operation should proceed, provided it fulfills all the statutory obligations that are required of it. And I think that is an important step forward. I think the politicisation of Adani to be something other than what it actually is very concerning, not just for the bilateral relationship between Australia and India, but it could next be a Chinese company.
Absolutely, yeah.
It could be a US company, it could be a Russian company, right? And so from our point of view, we believe that the current attitude of the Queensland government and the Australian government and the opposition leader is healthy now. There is that level of almost fanatical opposition to his mine has got more common sense. People are also seeing that Adani is also a leader in renewable energy. But I think the other important part about Adani is that even from an environmental point of view, you have over 28% more greenhouse emissions to the alternative provider, which is in Indonesia. Over 28% more greenhouse emissions if our coal goes to India. The reality is India is doing an enormous amount of investment in renewable energy. But it will still need coal for at least 30 years. Better to have our coal, which is cleaner, over 28% less greenhouse emissions, but also it does something else that's very important from a humanity point of view. It will help raise millions of people out of the poverty line where they can have clean sanitation, access to clean and cheaper energy. And here in Queensland, it'll offer jobs. Now, those are three very compelling reasons why you want Indian investment. You know, and I want to assure your audience that Indian companies are really very responsible citizens. Let me give you one example here in Queensland. On the agricultural sector, we have an Indian company that is doing really well in providing machinery and also in over 1,000 jobs being put through, and that is of course the Mahindra Group. Right? Now Mahindra is a huge company, and that is another good example. Other good examples are Tata, Infosys, Wipro. You know, I could keep going through them. India is a huge export earner. You go to Victoria and other states. Right? So you only see the beginning of what is a major boost in trade and investment. It is no longer a question of whether we should do business in India, as may have been the case for the last 15 years. We have no choice. The world's 5th largest economy is going to be the world's 3rd largest economy. It also has one of the youngest populations in the world. And it actually will provide the workforce, and is providing the workforce in a significant parts of the globe, from the US to Europe, to Australia, and even to China.
Fascinating. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah.
And thank you for joining us, and I look forward to the talk tonight.
Thanks very much.
Again, you're with AAA Queensland. Goodbye.